What was the good, bad, disappointing, ugly from week 10 in fantasy football Sunday games? And what are the injury updates you need to know coming out of the action? It's time to break it down right here and right now as we begin another edition and another week of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for SportingNews.com. A lot of interesting results in Week 10. We had the crazy Vikings-Bills overtime game. That was almost matched by the crazy Cowboys-Packers overtime game. Improbable wins by the NFC North teams of those games. The Vikings, what a performance by Justin Jefferson. The Packers win on the strength, come back, 3 touchdowns from Christian Watson there with Aaron Rodgers doing the honors there. So 2 NFC North teams get huge wins over teams that looked pretty good and were getting strong in their conference. So upsets there. A lot of exciting action there for fantasy football. A lot of good quarterback performances, which was nice to see there in a year of disappointment at that position. We got a lot of numbers across the board and some big wide receiver combinations going off as well in some of those games. So we'll break down first the big performances, the surprises there as well in our first segment. Then we'll get to the disappointments. Not as many this week, which is great to hear. And then we'll close the show looking at the injury updates you need to know, including 2 from that Rams-Cardinals game. Unfortunately, Cooper Kupp going down with an ankle injury and Zach Ertz getting out early in the game with a knee injury. So those are just 2 of the big injuries that happened here in Week 10. So a lot to break down here. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen. Today, we're free and available to you on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. They score more or less than their PrizePicks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. All right, let's dive into the surprise performances. We'll go by position here. So we'll start at quarterback. This is just a surprise because it just keeps happening. Justin Fields, 167 and 2 through the air. They both go to Cole Kmet. His passing touchdowns, 147 and 2 on the ground. So more than 300 yards of total offense. 4 TDs. Unfortunately, he also gave a TD to the Lions, a pick 6 by Jeffrey Okudah the other way. So his interception also turned into points. So Justin Fields accounting for 5 of the touchdowns in that game. Unfortunately, lost to the Lions, but Justin Fields, it doesn't matter for fantasy purposes. He did lose last week to the Dolphins, putting up massive numbers against really bad defenses. Fields is feeling it all around here. This offense is just kind of free-flowing here with Fields doing whatever he wants, throwing downfield. He had Cole Kmet wide open. So Kmet has gone up to 5 touchdowns. This is a guy that had trouble scoring. He didn't score at all last year. He was wide open on a busted coverage there. They also threw him in the red zone earlier. So 4 for 74 and 2 for Kmet. So Fields, Kmet, that connection is going. Darnell Mooney did have a few big plays, but not a touchdown here, not enough yardage in the game. But Fields has kind of taken over, and really it's hurting the rest of this offense in terms of no rushing yards available for other players. So it's been a complete 180 for what you get with Fields. It's amazing to watch here and very fun in fantasy football. We recommended him a lot in cash games here, and he came through big time, whether you're playing DraftKings or FanDuel. He was worth it to carry your team and really carried most of the burden of your scoring there that you wanted for your 50-50s and those simple payout tournaments there. So love that as well with Fields performing well. Now, another young quarterback that played well because they let him run a little bit was Kenny Pickett. He ran really well. He nearly got 60 yards. He did get a touchdown on the ground. He didn't have an interception, 200 yards passing. It could have gone a little bit better for sure because they had that one play to George Pickens, which was considered a running play. So if he had gotten that, it would have been a really nice day for Kenny Pickett against the Saints at home. Some of the matchups here in the second half are much better than what Pickett faced early. Remember, he had to look at the Bills, he had to look at the Eagles. Just some really brutal matchups for Kenny Pickett early in his career as a starter. So he's starting to feel it, getting a little bit comfortable. The Steelers making some adjustments, going a little bit run heavy there. So good promising turnaround for Kenny Pickett that he could have some QB1 value down the stretch in his rookie season. Now let's turn to running back, and we'll stick with what we saw from the Steelers. Jaylen Warren, 12 touches there for 77 yards. He had 3 catches for 40, so he looked really good in that role. It actually helped Najee Harris because they didn't put it all on Najee Harris, so he was able to run well. The Saints' run defense just keeps crumbling. 20 carries for 99 yards, so pretty decent game. They actually ended up being close in scoring, depending on the format, because Warren was involved in the passing game. Harris didn't score, but that backfield really was helping take pressure off Pickett. Kind of what we've seen there develop in Chicago with Fields and David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. That kind of happened here. Herbert is a juice guy, kind of like Warren. Harris is the workhorse, kind of like Montgomery. Doesn't get the big yardage. But when you get the quarterback running, it changes things for the running backs quite a bit. That's what we like to see from Harris. So one of his best games, very promising here going forward for his value there, that if he can start pounding out those yards and getting a chance for scores, he's going to be in business. While Warren might have some standalone value in PPR leaning leagues because of the way they use him. And keep in mind, this team doesn't have a lot of weapons now without Chase Claypool. It's pretty much Deontay Johnson and Pat Freiermuth and George Pickens. So they're going to involve the backs a little bit more. They want to be a run-first, run-heavy team here with their defense back up to speed. That's going to help them stick with the run as well. So good development here for the Steelers for sure. All right, some other breakdowns here. Jonathan Taylor came back healthy. Jeff Saturday started Matt Ryan again at quarterback. It was like the normal Colts offense here, 22 for 147, including a 66-yard touchdown. So he's back, looked really good. No effects of the ankle injury, back in a legitimate offense. Aaron Jones, we needed to feed him a little bit more. He was the key to the comeback against the Cowboys. He was really involved in the passing game. Nearly saw 70% of the workload, which has not been happening for a while there in relation to A.J. Dillon. So their best player got leashed, 26 touches, 156 yards, and a touchdown for him. In that Munich game, we saw Rachaad White run really well. First 100-yard game was secured, 22 for 105. Leonard Fournette did get the touchdown. He also had the interception. He also had the hip injury. So we'll get into a little bit about Fournette in our injury updates there. But definitely looking at Rachaad White potentially taking over this backfield. It was a pretty even split series rotation, and now Leonard Fournette hurt again with a hip injury. We'll see what happens after his Week 11 bye, but that's not a fluke. The Buccaneers were more dedicated to the run. We saw that. Isaiah Pacheco, 16 carries, 82 yards. I mean, still Jerick McKinnon in the passing game, but they really phased out Clyde Edwards-Helaire. More on him in the second segment. But Pacheco, they've been hinting that he's the starter. They finally had a positive game script in a way that they could run the ball against the Jaguars, and he saw that decent number for Pacheco. Jeff Wilson Jr., he's pretty much the co-lead back with Raheem Mostert. They're careful of Mostert. He's the older back. He's a speed back, so needs to have fresh legs here. Mostert did score early in the game as well, but another big game for Jeff Wilson. 17 carries, 119 yards, and a touchdown. He got the couple catches there for 24 yards. So Wilson landed in a great spot. So if you dropped Wilson there because of being moved from the 49ers, he's gotten great value here with the Dolphins that we did not expect. So good to see that. Ezekiel Elliott, I thought he would play, but he was a late scratch there for the Cowboys. That meant more Tony Pollard, and more Tony Pollard. Great production here. 22 carries, 115 yards, and a touchdown for Pollard. So we'll see about Zeke going forward. They did have the bye week, so he didn't come back after that. So we'll see what happens, but maybe they'll keep staying with the hot hand of Pollard forward and give him the majority of touches, make Ezekiel Elliott more of a veteran power back complement. You also had James Conner return. Well, he did return last week, but he returned back to his form, and he dominated the touches here. 24 touches, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. Was key to the Cardinals beating the Rams with Colt McCoy in their quarterback. So Conner's locked and loaded. They phased out Benjamin. there. So Keontae Ingram was the only other back touching the ball. You had Zach Ertz also go down. So really, James Conner had to be the centerpiece of the offense and really run the ball and handle all the key totes without Murray. And he saw that great production overall. I mean, it was not the most efficient production, but 86-2 you'll take any day from a guy that can score. Interesting that Elijah Mitchell out-touched Christian McCaffrey 19-18 in that game. I think they're just being careful with McCaffrey. Keep that in mind. The 49ers are thinking playoffs. They don't want to overwork McCaffrey here too early, and especially when Elijah Mitchell ran so well. So 18 for 89 for him. Looks fully healthy, a lot of speed there. That's why Wilson was expendable for the 49ers, and we saw that. So that's going to continue, I think. But that's going to be at the expense of maybe the pass game. If they can run too easily with either McCaffrey or Mitchell, it's going to really hurt them from throwing the ball too much beyond getting the ball to Deebo Samuel as a runner. At wide receiver, you had Justin Jefferson go off here. Now, we haven't had this massive game from Jefferson in terms of yardage and the scoring at the same time, but he just showed that he could dominate a really tough matchup against the Bills, made that amazing catch there that saved the day. Late 10 for 193 and 1 for Justin Jefferson. So he's really taken over as the top wide receiver in fantasy. I know Stephon Diggs had a big blow-up game in that one as well, but in terms of where you drafted him, he's been the most reliable guy up there. Consider Jonathan Taylor's been hurt. You've had Christian McCaffrey have the little bit of transition and struggle, and Cooper Kupp is now on the shelf. So Jefferson coming through and headed to being the top wide receiver in fantasy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, good to see him rebound. 10 for 119. These slot number ones have been pretty big all year. St. Brown gets going again against the Bears. We knew that was going to happen with Kindle Vildor and Jalen Johnson hurting in the secondary, so that really helped. Christian Kirk, again, another big game, 2 touchdowns there. So these slot number ones really working when they have those good matchups away from top corners, and that definitely happened for St. Brown and Kirk. How about Christian Watson? Only 4 catches on 9 targets there, but 107 and 3 touchdowns. They pretty much worked away from Trayvon Diggs. Aaron Rodgers kept exploiting that matchup. It was run, 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 run. Let's look for a big play for Christian Watson, and that came to fruition here. So Romeo Doubs is down. Allen Lazard was covered pretty well. So we saw a lot of Watson. They wanted the downfield passing game. So it was a very intent effort here by the Packers. Run, 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 set up the deep ball for Aaron Rodgers. Not a lot of volume, only 20 passes there. So when you look at that for Watson, big game. I don't expect him to blow out every week, but he did have the volume, even though he only had the 4 catches, and he should be pretty consistently involved going forward with Lazard. Same game, 11 catches, 150 and 2 for CeeDee Lamb. I heard Jair Alexander was on the other side, but they could move a Lamb around well. Michael Gallup also got banged up in the game. Noah Brown came in hurt. So Noah Lamb CeeDee Lamb dominated touches over Noah Brown and Michael Gallup in the game, 11, 150, and 2. So this is the CeeDee Lamb we're expecting all season long, with Dak Prescott being that clear number 1, dominating without Amari Cooper, and that's what we saw in that game. Kadarius Toney, 4 for 57 and 1, product of Mecole Hardman missing game with an abdomen injury. Then very early, Juju Smith-Schuster was concussed on a hit by Jaguars young safety Andre Sisco. So that's what we saw develop here for sure for Toney. So Toney playing the Tyreek Hill light role that we thought could develop here, 457 and 1, made a nice move on the sideline for his touchdown. So we'll watch Juju and the concussion. Does he have to miss time? Sky Moore has been pretty much phased out. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is making a few plays here. But should Juju miss time, Moore not be a factor, then Toney is going to be a bigger deal because he's the ideal, again, Tyreek Hill type receiver here for Patrick Mahomes. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a big road warrior, 5 catches, 99 yards. He's been good away from Cleveland all season long, maybe because they throw a little bit more and they don't have as much success running and winning. So that helps the volume. But Peoples-Jones, just watch out. He's really failing with Jacoby Brissett, but he's as a big play threat, he's going to even be bumped up higher with Deshaun Watson. Darius Slayton, speaking of big play threat, made a great play against the Texans where he caught the ball in open field and made a move and he was gone. That Darius Slayton and Daniel Jones connection is reheated here from their rookie year. So he's clearly their number 1. We're trying to find something that isn't there yet with Wan'Dale Robinson. They've been using other guys for sure. So Darius Slayton, 395 and 1 here. He needs to be managed in all leagues of wide receiver 3. There wasn't much going on in the Titans passing game, but Nick Westbrook-Akine scores a couple touchdowns. He had never been to the end zone before. He became their number 1. Traylon Burks came back there, but 5, 119 and 2, one on a pretty flea flicker play that Derrick Henry flipped back to Ryan Tannehill. So Westbrook-Akine might be the answer here to the downfield passing game that the Titans have been looking for there. So significant volume, big play trust. That's something we're going to watch there. And Paris Campbell, good volume again, 7 for 76. Also made a nice move to get in the end zone on his touchdown there. So I think he's here to stay. Maybe at the expense of Alec Pierce, who's kind of faded, been up and down here. They can't push the ball downfield. Campbell is more that short area, big play after the catch guy. So we'll see how that continues to develop. But Campbell was working pretty well with Sam Ehlinger. Now it got reheated with Matt Ryan. Tight end, we talked about Cole Kmet. Yes, that's not a fluke. He's a big target. He's got size, speed, athleticism. The Bears are finally learning how to use him, and Fields is connecting well with him. Juwan Johnson, he was the only thing basically trusted and working in the Saints offense against the Steelers, 5-44-1. He's been on a touchdown tear of late as well, but hard to trust there in that offense. But with Adam Troutman banged up and Taysom Hill not really being a tight end, that's where we're seeing the production. And Foster Moreau, we liked him as a pickup with Darren Waller on the shelf now with a hamstring injury on IR. He's pretty much a plug and play for Waller, 3-43-1. I think he's a good replacement if you lost Waller, really just hurting a tight end, such as losing Zach Ertz this week. All right, there you have a look at the surprising performances, the big names and the littler names producing there for you in fantasy in week number 10. We'll get into the more disappointing performance in our next segment, then do rapid fire and the injury updates coming out of the games, including Cooper Kupp going down for the Rams. This holiday, find what you love at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find your favorite single barrel bourbon or the perfect gifts for everyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide. And all with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Find what you love what you find. Only at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Please drink responsibly and be 21 to do so. All right, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter most to the biggest names in sports, go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights. Only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get into some of the more disappointing performances. Again, quarterbacks, it was a pretty good landscape this week. Justin Herbert, we didn't like him that match against the 49ers. It was a grind. We thought we were going early with the DeAndre Carter touchdown, but he lost Gerald Everett in game. Joshua Palmer was bottled up. 196, 1-1. So Herbert just doesn't have the weapons to put up the numbers. I think he's playing well reality-wise, but a lot of Austin Eckler checkdowns, not a lot of running game traditionally to help Herbert, not a lot of running from Herbert to pad his stats, but 196, 1-1. Still disappointing for Herbert. And again, not a lot to do with him. Again, you lose your left tackle, you lost your right tackle, you lose your tight end mid-game, you lose your second tight end, you already had Jalen Guyton on the shelf, you lose Keenan Allen, you lose Mike Williams. It's brutal. All the weapons that were out there for Justin Herbert that we trusted are gone, so that's what you get. Russell Wilson, so many weapons there, but 286, 1-1. I think that was disappointing because they had a huge volume, 42 passes there that Wilson had, with really more than that because he had the dropbacks and the sacks there, almost threw 50 times in that game or attempted to throw. 286, 1-1 is very disappointing there, especially in a game where the Broncos can run. Part of it was Jerry Jeudy going down. We'll talk about that in our injury updates in our final segment. So those are the only really two disappointing quarterback performances in relation to their expectations here in Week 10. And running back Derrick Henry, tough sledding. The Broncos have been pretty decent against the run. They give up some yard chunks, but Derrick Henry could not get going here. He actually helped set up the passing game downfield. They were definitely trying to zone in to stop Henry. That's what opened up things for Westbrook-Akine. 21 for 67, one of those bad games. I mean, he was due. He had two big games in a row there with multiple touchdowns. That's what's going to happen sometimes with running backs, and you just accept it. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, zero work at all there with Pacheco and McKinnon. It's over for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They found a way to phase him out. So it's brutal here for the Chiefs running back that was on fire early in the season, the first rounder, probably ending his run with the team this year. Alvin Kamara, 11 touches for 45 yards. What happened to Andy Dalton facilitating Alvin Kamara? Well, the Saints defense was gashed the other side. You have the Steelers defense with TJ Watt back. He made a big difference there. So Kamara, unfortunately, is going to be dragged down in games where Dalton is not very good. DeAndre Swift, 7 touches here, 12 yards. He did have a touchdown, but otherwise it was pretty brutal. They Had Jamal Williams clearly as the lead back. We said Swift was a very risky play. He got lucky if he got the touchdown there, but still not a lot of volume. There's 7 touches for 12 yards, 6 rushing, 6 receiving. That's not going to get it done here for you in fantasy when you're looking at him to give you real RB2, even borderline RB1 production. Justin Jackson getting involved, the tight end getting involved in the red zone, so pretty ugly for DeAndre Swift. David Montgomery, we had Khalil Herbert even get hurt game, but only 10 for 44. Problem is Justin Fields bogarting all the rushing, 147 and 2 after putting up more than 180 yards the week before. So maybe they'll settle down. Fields won't run as wild, and we'll see a little bit more from Montgomery. This could happen definitely this week against the Falcons, who just got gashed by the Panthers on the ground. The Broncos backfield just disappointing. Chase Edmonds with Melvin Gordon now, Latavius Murray, absolutely messy. They're even messier than when they had Mike Boone. I want to avoid Broncos backs as much as possible. All right, switching to wide receiver, Cooper Kupp was the injury, but Amari Cooper, 3 for 32. That's all the targets he got, as Donovan Peoples-Jones nominated. So part of the product of Xavier Howard on him and coverage, so they went away from him. The game script got out of hand, so they didn't really involve Cooper too much when there was no doubt of the outcome. So 3 for 32 this morning. Chris Olave, Andy Dalton dragged him down as well. Only 3 catches for 40 yards there. Cortland Sutton, we thought it was Jerry Jeudy going down. And Greg Dulcich also only 1 catch in this game that you thought Dulcich and Sutton would go off. Dulcich really disappeared with 1 catch for 13 yards. Sutton 6 for 66 is okay, but the 66-yard touchdown went to Virgil Griffin or whatever his name was on one play. Ozzie Virgil, the former Braves catcher. Somebody caught the ball for a long touchdown here, but Sutton should be that guy. It's not happening for him. Michael Pittman, you thought, okay, fired him up. We have one, Matt Ryan coming back. He didn't quite happen here. 7 for 53. Alec Pierce blanked in the game. So healthy targets for Pittman. Not terrible game, but Paris Campbell stole the show as well as Jonathan Taylor. So again, Pittman still disappointing because you thought, okay, for sure we're in business with Ryan, but maybe it'll take a game to get them rewarmed up. It is the Eagles next week, so a lot tougher matchup. They're 3 for 45 for Aaron Lazard. We talked about that with Watson having the better matchup and going off. Deebo Samuel, only 6 touches for 51 yards, product again of Mitchell and McCaffrey dominating the running game, and not a lot of passing there from the 49ers, only 240 yards there from one Jimmy Garoppolo. He seems to favor Brandon Ayuk in key situations downfield as well as Juwan Jennings. So Deebo's value really hurt by the backs and the receivers there. San Francisco, speaking of a guy not producing in San Francisco, how about George Kittle? Only 1 catch for 21 yards. So Kittle being used as a blocker, Deebo being used as an occasional runner and blocker. Too many mouths to feed. That's what's happening now in San Francisco all of a sudden there for Kittle and Samuel. All right, we will close the show looking at the injury updates you need to know. But before we do that, it was an exciting week for our title sponsor, PrizePicks. We almost hit our 4 numbers there. Josh Jacobs came 5.5 yards short of what we were looking for, 6 yards. But when we look at it, Stephon Diggs easily smashed his number. Saquon Barkley did. We knew the high volume for Russell Wilson was going to put his yardage up. It didn't materialize in a lot of big fantasy points, but still was there. And how about Cole Kmet? We said on one big play he could go over those 25 receiving yards, and he did. So we're excited to play PrizePicks again here, and we'll give you our PrizePicks picks of the week on Friday. It is daily fantasy made easy. How does it work? All you do is pick 2 to 5 players there, and if they go more scoring less or more than the PrizePicks projection in terms of yardage or touchdown, you can win up 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. Just you versus projection available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball about to start again, soccer with the World Cup, WNBA, wait for that next summer, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, your basketball, cricket, and more here. So a lot of good stuff that you can get in on the action with PrizePicks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy to get in on PrizePicks, safe and fast for brawls wherever you are, and currently operational in more than 30 states in Canada. It's easy to get in on PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match of $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON and sign up for instant deposit match up to $100 only at PrizePicks.com. All right, it is time to close the show with our rapid-fire injury updates here that you need to know coming out for your skill positions. We'll do that right now. No quarterbacks were hurt this week. Josh Allen was scary. He fought through it. We didn't know Kyler Murray, hamstring, and Matthew Stafford were going to miss a game. We'll find out probably if there's more of those this week, but nothing we know about right now. But running back Khalil Herbert had a hip injury. We'll see if he can go for the Bears next week against the Falcons. Could be a big David Montgomery game and that good matchup. Leonard Fournette, the Buccaneers, as we told you, had to bye week 11 here. So we'll see. We'll see if they come out of it. Also a hip injury with Rachaad White and Keyshawn Vaughn leading the backfield. We'll see how that plays out. Jerry Jeudy, another injury, ankle, ruled out early, got hurt, didn't even have a catch there. So disappointing season for Jerry Jeudy continues there in Tennessee. Juju Smith-Schuster, concussion. We'll see if he can clear protocol and play next week against the Chargers here. It's a pretty tough matchup, we know, with Bryce Callahan in the slot. But, again, got knocked out early by Andre Cisco. Tough one. Cooper Kupp, pretty much you can expect him out for the rest of the fantasy football season. Ankle injury, brutal. Is the same right ankle he hurt just a couple weeks ago, played through it. So, tough situation. The Rams are pretty much toast as an offense we're trusting in fantasy football. Zach Ertz, this is brutal, but again, it could be an opportunity here for the rookie Trey McBride. The knee injury looks pretty bad here, missed multiple weeks. It was not a torn ACL, but enough to sideline him for the good chunk of the rest of the fantasy football season there. So really we came unscathed without a lot of big injuries, but some ones there, Kupp and Ertz are the ones that hurt the most because these are every week starters we're looking at. Maybe you faded Jeudy a little bit. Herbert is a flex play. Fournette, you might have been looking to pivot to Rachaad White here. So looking at the situation that we look at in fantasy football, so we came unscathed for a very late week, pretty limited damage there, but a lot of things have already developed, and we also saw some good health there, especially with Jonathan Taylor, James Conner coming back for us in fantasy football. So a lot of good stuff there to look at here, and hopefully we'll have better health going forward here with our fantasy football teams as we're working on a stretch. The important thing to know, just make sure you got your handcuffs prepared with Fournette. If you had Rachaad White, you were good to go. If you had Montgomery and Herbert was available, you were protected there. Now, Jonathan Taylor's back healthy, but make sure that you're protected there with Deion Jackson. He should come back from the knee injury and be the top handcuff here. So do this all around wherever you can. Devin Singletary with James Cook, Dalvin Cook with Alexander Madison. Just do it this week. Ensure yourself that you won't be out in a pinch for your down the stretch and playoff run here in fantasy football. All right, thanks so much for making Locked On Fantasy Football for your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, only on Locked On Sports Today. It's available in the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like Locked On Fantasy Football. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Good luck if you need something in the Eagles-Commanders game to win your Week 10 matchup. Tomorrow we'll break down the Week 11 waiver wire, topped with our breakout rookie wide receiver, Christian Watson.